Hello everybody, welcome back to Bandwagon Sports, and today I am going to be going over the top 5 best and worst free agent signings so far from the 2021 free agent class. There's been a lot of great free agent signings already. Big name guys like Dougie Hamilton, Philip Grubauer, Jaden Schwartz, Ryan Suter, Blake Coleman. There's just so many great free agents available this year, and I'm going to be going over the 5 best contracts and the 5 worst contracts, really, and fits in this free agent class. So without further ado, let's hop into today's episode. So starting off here with the 5th worst free agent signing of the 2021 class, I'm going to go with Nashville Predators forward Mikhail Greenland. He got a contract worth $5 million for 4 years, I believe. And honestly, I think that's quite a bit of an overpay. I would pay Greenland around $3 million, if I'm being honest. In 51 games this year, he only put up 13 goals and 14 assists for 27 points. It wasn't anything special defensively, and honestly, you're kind of paying a second or third line center $5 million. If Greenland has a big bounce back year, sure, this contract looks a lot better, but from what I've seen from him over the past couple seasons, this is really not a great deal. So $5 million to Greenland for the next 4 seasons, not a fan of it. So let's move on to the 5th best free agent contract of the season. So now for the 5th best free agent signing of the 2021 free agent class, I'm going to go with New Jersey Devils defenseman Dougie Hamilton. The reason this is only at number 5 is because he's being paid an average of $9 million, and I feel like that's quite a bit, even though guys like Zach Werenski and Seth Jones just got paid $9.5 million. I feel like for all of them, it's a bit of an overpay, and honestly, $9 million for Dougie Hamilton is no different for me. I still think this is a great signing for the Devils. A real number 1 legitimate defenseman on that blue line is really going to help them out a lot. Hamilton had a great season in 55 games, had 10 goals, 32 assists for 42 points, and he wasn't awful defensively either. I think Hamilton's a great guy who New Jersey can slot into that top pairing, and yeah, it's still a really great signing for the Devils. I think the fit's really good, and I do think that the $9 million is not great, but it's doable. So that's why it's only the 5th best. So let's move on to the 4th worst free agent contract now of the 2021 free agent class. So now for the 4th worst free agent signing, I'm going to go with Brandon Saad to the St. Louis Blues. He's getting paid an average of $4.5 million over the next 5 years, and I know Brandon Saad's not going to be a guy who's going to put up, excellent point totals for you, but this year I felt like he really did struggle. In 44 games, he had 15 goals and 24 points, and if I'm paying a guy $4 million, he's not going to be playing my third line. He's not going to be in a third line checking role like I think Brandon Saad is going to be for the Blues. If he has a good offensive resurgence, this is a decent deal, but as it stands right now, I would not pay Brandon Saad $4.5 million for what he did last year, or even really the season before that, but just a decent player who's probably going to be a third-line checking forward, maybe 30 points a year from this point forward. I would pay the guy $3 to $3.5 million at the very max for that offensive upside, but still just not a great signing, and it's number 4 for the worst contract. So let's move on to the 4th best contract this free agent class. So for the 4th best free agent signing this year, I'm going to go with Montreal Canadiens defenseman David Savard. And I think that David Savard, it's kind of a split tree on David Savard. I think that he's not excellent, but I think that he's a very solid number 4 or 5 defenseman potentially. And if Montreal is planning on going on another deep run, then David Savard's an excellent defenseman to have. A guy who can really shut things down, play a good defensive game, and chip in a few points here and there. But really, you're not going to get a lot of offense from Savard, maybe 10 to 15 points a season, and you're going to kind of have to live with that. So I think that $3.5 million is pretty much perfect for Savard with what he's going to give. He did have his career worst season this past year, but I think that he can really bounce back in Montreal. He can kind of fill in the presence of Shea Weber, not replace Shea Weber, but at least fill in defensively for him. So good signing here for the Canadiens, a really good, decent deal. So I have no complaints here, and it's the 4th best signing in my opinion. Let's move on to the 3rd worst signing now. For the 3rd worst free agent signing this year, I'm going to go with Seattle Kraken center Alexander Wennberg, and I do believe that they really overpaid for this guy. Overall, Wennberg's a decent player who can probably fill in your second or third line center role, but I would not pay him $4.5 million in any world. So Wenberg this year in 56 games played had 17 goals, 12 assists for 29 points. Okay defensively, nothing special. So really you're just kind of acquiring a third-line offensive center here who can probably put up 30 to 40 points for you. Is that worth $4.5 million? Absolutely not. If Wenberg returns to his form like he was in 15-16 and 16-17, is that worth $4.5 million? Absolutely. But unless Wenberg's going to be putting up 50-plus points for the Kraken and playing okay defensively, I think that this is really not a great signing right now. But again, he will probably be given a better role in Seattle than he did have in Florida, so that might help him quite a bit. But as it stands right now, $4.5 million is a bit of an overpay for Wenberg, so let's move on to the third best free agent signing of this class. So now here with the third best free agent signing of this class, I'm going to go with Calgary Flames forward Blake Coleman. They signed him to a 6-year, $4.9 million contract, and I think that this is a really good deal for a guy like Coleman. Someone who can chip in 50 to 60 points offensively and also play really great defensive hockey, shutdown hockey, really gritty bottom six hockey, and you can play him on your first line. I think that this is an excellent deal. If Blake Coleman really does emerge as a great top six player for the Flames, puts up 60 or even 50 points, and has a great defensive impact in Calgary, this is going to look like a great deal for the next few seasons. And I think that Blake Coleman has a lot to offer to the Flames, a team that really does kind of lack that two-way offensive and defense kind of game. They do have Matthew Tkachuk, and he's excellent, but I feel like they need more of that kind of player, and Blake Coleman's going to fit in perfectly probably on that second line behind Matthew Tkachuk on the left wing. So good contract overall. Let's move on to the second worst contract of this free agent class. So going on to the second worst signing of the 2021 free agent class, I'm going to go with goaltender Frederik Andersen, who just signed with the Carolina Hurricanes. This was a pretty bad signing. Frederik Andersen in 24 games played this year went 13-8-3, but had an .895 save percentage and a .296 goals against average. I'm really only looking at the save percentage here. Frederik Andersen played pretty much as bad as Curtis McElhinney, and in a much larger span as well. And Curtis McElhinney, in my opinion, was probably the worst backup in the NHL this year. So to sign this guy to a $4.5 million contract for the next 2 years, at least it ends quickly for Carolina, because I don't think this guy's bouncing back. He had an awful season. He's been declining pretty much since, he came to Toronto. He's had a worse season every year since, even though he played great his first 3 seasons. Last year he had a .909 save percentage. This year an .895. I really don't think it's going to get better for Andersen. So to sign him to a $4.5 million contract is a little bit desperate, I think, and just really not a great signing. So let's move on to the second best free agent signing of this year. So on to the second best free agent signing this year. This might be a surprise, but I'm going to go Mike Hoffman. I think that this is a really excellent, great signing for Montreal. And when you pair Hoffman beside a guy like Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield potentially, that could be a very powerful line. And you could potentially see Mike Hoffman get 70 points this season besides Suzuki and Caulfield. There's really a lot of factors to it. Hoffman being paid $4.5 for the next 3 years. He's going to be a good offensive contributor no matter what. So I think that part is pretty solid. He's nothing special defensively, but beside a two-way guy like Suzuki who might get 60, 70 points this year in a full season, and a guy like Caulfield who played great in the playoffs, and I believe he can get 50 to 60 this year, It really does come down to how is Hoffman going to play, because I'm going to say he's going to be the first-line left winger for that Montreal squad. And as it goes, I do believe this is a great contract as of this point. Last year in 52 games, he had 17 goals, 19 assists for 36 points on a really bad St. Louis team that was pretty injury-riddled. So for him to put up numbers like that, 60 points around that in a regular season, I think that's excellent offensive production. I expect him to keep it up in Montreal. So for now, Mike Hoffman is my second best free agent signing. Let's go on to the worst free agent signing, though, of this class. And I think it's a pretty good one. So in my eyes, the worst free agent signing this year has got to be Alex Goligoski. What was Minnesota thinking signing this guy? 1 year, $5 million contract. I know it's only 1 year, but who in their right mind is going to pay $5 million for Alex Goligoski, a guy who puts up maybe 20 points offensively and doesn't even have a great defensive game. It really did boggle me when Minnesota signed Gulgoski to that awful deal, especially when they're working on a guy like Kirill Kaprizov still, and he wants $11-12 million. That's just $5 million wasted on a subpar veteran defenseman. I really don't get it at all, and if this was not a worst free agent signings video, it would easily be Zach Werenski in this spot, but just Alex Gulgoski, a very confusing contract to me. Did not do anything last year to prove he deserves this. He had 3 goals and 22 points, which is decent, but I expect him to regress this year like he has every other year. And that's that. So let's move on to the best free agent signing, in my opinion. And I think that, again, this one's pretty good. Now, for the best free agent signing of the season so far, I'm going with Seattle Kraken goaltender Philip Grubauer. And this is an excellent fit. I mean, a guy who's coming off of a third-place Vezina vote, the third best goalie in the league, pretty much, and you sign him 6 years, $5.9 million per year. That's a great contract. I do not think that Grubauer is as good as Vasilevsky. I do not think he's as good as, maybe better than Hellebuck. You could argue that Philip Grubauer is the second best goalie in the league this year, and compared to Vasilevsky, who's getting paid like $8 or $9.5 million, to get this guy for just under 6 is excellent. And Grubauer, just this past season in 40 games played, had 30 wins, 9 losses, and 1 overtime loss. He had a .922 save percentage and a .195 goals against average, and a lot of that does have to do with a great team in front of him. But don't expect those numbers to drop very far. I would say Grubauer will still post around a .915 or a .920 this year. He'll have very solid play in net, and especially with Seattle's defense looking very strong defensively with guys like Adam Larson there and Jamie Alexiak and Mark Giordano, just big-body defensemen who can play good defensively. I expect Grubauer to put up a pretty similar season to that. Maybe not in the win column and the goals against average, but definitely the save percentage column, and I think that Seattle is going to definitely get their money worth with this guy in the next 6 years. And also don't count out Chris Driedger, who's the backup to this guy. If you need to give Grubauer a night off, Driedger's an excellent backup. So I think that this is easily the best free agent signing. Seattle came out of nowhere and just snagged this guy, and I think it was a steal for them. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Currently on our way to 200 subscribers. It would be excellent if you could help me out with that goal. But that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. But for now, bye.